Joining me in the studio, as promised a minute ago, Governor Rick Perry of the great state of Texas, 47th governor. He's defended Texans' conservative values, fought for principled solutions to tough challenges, and worked to implement clear vision for better schools. I'm reading this bio. I'm not reading that anymore. So, but what I do know about him is we're in Texas all the time, and he and I just met for the first time today, but we've got a lot of mutual friends and a lot of mutual friends in Texas. And he and our governor here in the state of Tennessee, Governor Bill Haslam, have managed to make the state of Tennessee and the state of Texas's economy literally boom, while many other economies are struggling around the nation. Welcome, Governor. Good to have you.
It's good to be here.
Thanks.
You got a good governor. He gets it about keeping the tax burden as light on the job creators as you can, and having a regulatory climate that's fair and predictable, legal system that doesn't allow for oversuing, and accountable public schools basically translates into a skilled workforce. And those are the four things. You get those four things right, and your economy will flourish.
So that's the secret.
It's not rocket science. I mean, and it'll work anywhere. I tell people, I say, it'll even work in California. I know that's kind of hard to some people to believe, but it will. I mean, you got to have courageous men and women, and I'm talking about legislators, governors, et cetera, that are willing to put those policies into place, because special interests always want you to spend more money on this program or that program. 2003, a good example of it, first time we'd had Republican leadership in Texas since Reconstruction, so pretty good spell with Democrat control. But in January of 2003, and we also faced a $10 billion budget shortfall because we had a technology bubble burst at that particular point in time, and we had some restrictions on the revenues coming into the state. And we had all run on the concept that if we get elected, if we get the privilege to lead the state, that we're going to treat our state budget like we treat our personal budgets or our small business budgets. And the left and the Democrats basically said, if you do that, you'll destroy the state. Nobody will move to the state. The reputation of the state will spiral into the ground. And we didn't buy into that. We believed that supply side economics, the old Art Laffer and Ronald Reagan process, would work. And we put that in place. We cut $10 billion out of our state budget. And it wasn't easy. I mean, don't get me wrong. It was some hard decisions. But the result was we came back in for our next legislative session in January 2005, and we had an $8 billion budget surplus.
Let me ask you something, because we've talked about this a lot around the coffee table over the years, those of us that are regular guys wondering about those of you guys that are politicians. So you actually looked at people $10 billion worth and used the word no.
Yes, sir.
And got reelected.
2 more times.
Yeah. How I mean, because there had to be people screaming.
Oh, the editorial pages of some of the papers were pretty brutal, and obviously those on the left. Your universities were going to go all to heck in a handbasket.
But the voter who's used to getting something from the state, who's now not got a program anymore, that program's gone. How do they go along with this? Because their grandmother that used to get so and so, or their uncle that used to get so and so, doesn't get it anymore.
Well, you got to remember, Texas is not what you'd call a rich state when it comes to these programs. I mean, we made decisions a long time ago that we weren't going to have a lot of government-run handout programs in the state. So, what people found after a period of time was that freedom really mattered, that freedom from overtaxation, from overregulation. Let's say you're a Hispanic in Texas, and that's one of the real growing groups in the state of Texas, and historically they'd voted for Democrats. Mm-hmm. But a young man who in, let's say, 2006 dropped out of high school as a 16-year-old, bought a used pickup truck, got married, and his economic future didn't look real bright. But because of policies that would put in place in that state, in particular on the energy side of things, in this young man's case, he got a job driving a truck in that Eagle Ford region down south of San Antonio, making over $100,000 a year. Mm-hmm. And now he's living in a 2-bedroom, a 2-bath, 3-bedroom house, new house. He and his wife have 2 children. They're talking about where these kids are going to go to college. Mm-hmm. And I might add, he's voting Republican now because he knows that the reason that his life is better is because of policies that Republicans put into place. And that's our not only our challenge, it's also our goal as we go forward here, and possible preparation of a 2016 presidential run, that we're able to have that conversation with people from all stratas, if you will, whether they're a young Hispanic who's just getting started in life, or whether it's a blue-collar Teamster union. Those folks ought to look at the Republican policies that are in a place like Texas or Tennessee and say, you know what, that's how I want to live. I want to live free from overtaxation, overregulation. You let me keep more of my money, I'll make the best decisions. And that's what we've done in Texas. Those 4 things we put into place, and we got out of the way.
By the way, there's a job for that guy because, not because of government program, but because there wasn't a government program.
Bam.
And you got out of the way.
Bingo.
And Art Laffer's a buddy of mine, and he said he calls Ronald Reagan the real president. He said we used to try to sit around and tell the real president the best thing you can do is try to not do anything. Try to stay out of the way. Try to stay out of the way.
And it really is, and it's a hard thing for Washington to do. And you think about it.
It's a hard thing for politicians to do.
Yeah, it is. But I think Washington, I think we've done it pretty good in Texas.
Yeah.
I mean, from December of 2007 through December of 2014, you got to remember that's the worst recession this country's gone through since the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
During that period of time, that 7-year period of time, Dave, Texas created 1.5 million net private sector jobs. The rest of the country, the 49 other states, lost 400,000 jobs during that period of time. And the reason we were successful wasn't because we're dependent upon the oil and gas industry. It's because prior to that, we put these policies into place, and you saw an extraordinary diversification of our economy, whether it was manufacturing that had come in, whether it was high tech, whether it was medical. I mean, our economy is so diversified now. That's the reason that we grew, and that's the reason we were able to make it through that recession better than any other state. And we can do the same thing for this country, but we got to have people in Washington, D.C. that trust the states, because if you'll allow the states to compete, if you'll block grant the medical decisions back to the states, you block grant the transportation decisions. I trust Bill Haslam and the legislature and Ron Ramsey and those guys making the decisions for Tennessee a lot better than some bureaucrat in Washington, D.C. Think about this whole concept of Common Core, and that there's one size fits all for educational curriculum. Well, you know that's nonsense. Mm-hmm. People know that's nonsense.
That's why we have a local school board.
Exactly.
What a concept.
Exactly. So the hard part's going to be finding the courageous men and women that are in the United States Congress, that are in the United States Senate, that say, you know what, we're gonna put this burden on the states. We're going to block grant these dollars back to the states. There'll be there may be a state or two that mess it up, mm-hmm. But the fact is, that's how our founding fathers saw it. Old Louis Brandeis, who was a Supreme Court justice, very liberal one, I might add, but he respected the Constitution. He said, states are the laboratories of democracy. He said they're supposed to go out there and experiment. And he said from time to time, one of them's going to mess up. But he said at least they haven't destroyed the republic. I fear that if Obamacare is not replaced, that we will in fact see the loss of the republic.
The drain on those of us that run the businesses is astronomical.
It is.
I mean, it's millions of dollars for me, without a doubt. Governor, thank you for taking your time.
Thank you, Dave.
Enjoy Tennessee while you're here.
We'll be back often.
Have a safe trip.
By the way, thank you for Tennessee from Texas.
Well, there you go.
We appreciate you guys.
We'll see you when we're in Austin next time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
God bless.